Good afternoon, everyone. It's Linda here from Banjo's Beat House with our Facebook Friday. And a common question that I get asked a lot in the store and online is what type of wire to use. Well, the first question I will always come back to a customer with that one is, what are you trying to make? Because there is two types of wire that we work with in jewelry making. There is your sculptural type of wire, which is either a copper base, brass base, or a stainless steel base. Stainless steel, of course, being 3/4 hard, really hard to manipulate. The other two being softer, but they are, again, if you're using a jig, if you're making your own head pins, if you're doing sculptural work or wrapping a bezel, which is different to jewelry wire if you're doing stringing work. So that's always the first question that I will ask to guide a customer as to which way to go. And then I ask about the hole size somebody's working with and the material somebody's working with. They're important for when you're actually picking the right type of wire to work with. Jewelry wire comes in what Beadalon describe as good, better, best. So good is a 7-strand, which is 7 cables of stainless steel twisted all together and covered in nylon. Better is a 19-strand version, and the best is a 49-strand version. So a lot of my customers will experiment when they're testing product designs out. They'll use a 7-strand because it's nice and cheap. The challenge is if it gets a bend in it, that wire, that bend tends to stay in it. So then most will progress when they're doing their finish work into a 19-strand for the majority of their pieces, and will tend to reserve the 49 when they're working with a heavy gemstone, which, over time can cause bends and things in wire and needs that little bit more flexibility that the 49 offers. So that's the difference between the three products. Then there's the difference in the widths and what you use for them. So it's not just an easy question to always say this is the one to choose, which I think a lot of people would like me to do, but there's actually some things you need to think about. So I'm going to tip you guys down and we will take a look at the different thicknesses that we have on range. There's one we currently don't have in stock, but I can order him, and we'll go through the different things. Oops, picked the wrong camera. So in terms of, as I said, this is the 7-strand, but I've got the stack of this here because it's the one I have the most of in stock in the different thicknesses. So what do I mean by different thicknesses? Well, that's the measurement here. So this is 0.1 inches or 0.25 millimeters. So if you're dealing with really tiny holes, so things like freshwater pearls, which have, can be anywhere between a 0.3 to 0.4 millimeter thick hole, this is the sort of wire thickness that you may need to be working with. In the 19-strand, you'd be working with the 0.12 because that's the finest, and in the 49-strand, you'd be working with the 0.13 because that's the finest there, which is 0.33. So, but we're going to keep going through the different thicknesses and what's the differences. So as I said, this is 0.1, which is the finest that I can order in. Then we jump down to 0.12. This is 0.3 millimeters thick. So these are the two, as I said, probably in the 19 and the 49. This is the size I use when I'm working with freshwater pearls. When customers have asked for them to be on wire and not on silk, this is the thickness that I use. The next common one that I sell is 0.15. This is a 0.3 millimeter thickness. This is great when you're dealing with some of the gemstones that often have a 0.6 to 0.8 mil hole and you want to be able to back thread your wire through. This is the one that you're going to have a little bit of an easier time with because it's just that little bit thinner. And then the other one that we carry is 0.18. This is the most common one that I work with personally. It's 0.46 millimeters thick. With gemstones and things that are 0.8 and glass that are 0.8 to the 1 mil hole size and above, you can easily get these back threaded through if you're going to bury your wire. If you're going to use a folded clock crimp, then you don't need to worry about folding wire, and I just go for the thickest wire you can get through. There is a 0.24, which I think is, from memory, a 0.6 millimeter thick available in this range as well. I just haven't had it in stock for a while. I tend to order that in as required. So as I said, this is 7 strands. So if you can imagine 7 pieces of stainless steel cable all twisted together, that's what this one is. Whereas 19 is 19 strands of stainless steel cable all twisted together. We tend to carry this in the 0.12, the 0.15 and the 0.18. I know I'm talking in the inches, it's just because that's how I have to order it. So that's just how I particularly remember it. but that's our most 3 common sizes. Most of our customers are sitting here at the 9.2 meter roll, and we also do have a 30 meter roll option, and then there's bigger ones available. And as I said at the top, 49 strand is the top of the range, so it's what they call the best in the range. This is 49 strands of cable all twisted up together. So Beetalon, if you don't know, also has a fishing cable arm off their operations in Pennsylvania as well. So they make a lot of the stainless steel cabling that's used in fishing line trawlers. So again, this is another product that's been adapted from, you know, the world of fishing and other things into jewelry making. So what does jewelry wire look like? Well, this is the 0.13, so it is nice and fine, really easy to bend. That's the 49 versus a 0.18. So if I give you a side by side, you can see just the difference. There's a slight difference in thickness between those, but it does make a difference when you're getting into your hole sizes. This one is much more flexible, whereas this one's a lot stiffer, and that's also the primary difference between working with a 7 and a 49. I tend to only use 7 if I'm doing exposed wire work. So floating pieces, I tend to use 7 as people tend to treat them more delicately, and are not likely just to throw them in the back of the jewelry box, which is when a lot of the bends and things occur. People who are doing a lot of the beaded curtain work will often pick this up because things are just going to hang in a straight. So there's different ways you can use different things. There are different brands. So Softflex is one that we have up on the website, and then there's Flexi something, which is a big, I've forgotten the name of it and I didn't look it up. I apologize, it's been one of those days. Yeah, Flex Right, I think it might be, is a Beadsmith branded one, which I believe most of it's made in the US, and it's, you know, I worked with it in the past. I've also worked with Softflex in the past. They have, this one is just a particular different depth. This is a 0.14 inch, and a customer particularly needed that thickness, so we got that in for them. But yeah, there's different options you can explore on the website under jewelry wire, and the different brands. Then the last question I get asked a lot about is colored wire. So everything I've shown you here is all in the bright or the natural stainless steel. By the time you're looking at color, you can be adding anywhere between 30 to 60% in cost on top of the basic plain stainless. So I tend to reserve those only when I'm doing floating, because you generally don't see that color in the piece. So to give you guys an example, so this is a fairly translucent bead. Yes, it does have a white core which is protecting it, but the one next to it doesn't. So that little blue bead has that stainless steel cable running through it, and you really don't pick up the difference. And if I was to go maybe run a red bead cord through it, maybe it would cause a color difference. But the reality is, if you are burying your wire in your beads, you don't need to be spending the money on the colored cord, because it's not going to make a fundamental difference to your design. You may as well stick to the plain stainless and save your money. The only time you're going to see your exposed wire is when you're working with a wire guardian, and you'll see the wire in the channel. That's typically at the back of the neck. The customer is generally only going to see that when they're actually going to put their piece on and off. But in this entire design, and again, we've got some translucent beads here, you're not really picking up the color of that cable wire. So for something that's going to be buried and not really on show, to me, there is no point investing in that colored wire to gain is kind of zero value out of it. So I'll always recommend to customers to stick with the plain stainless. If you're looking for a happy go-to to add in your kit as you're starting out, to me, I'd go with a 0.15 or the 0.38 millimeter in a 19. Start with that. It's going to get you through probably 80–90% of what you're going to work with throughout the course of your beading, and then you may just need to drop up or down depending on whether you're working with a chunkier heavy gemstone or with a freshwater pearl which has a really skinny hole. But again, you'll be happy across the 19 strand. It gets the job done without breaking the bank account. So that is my little discussion, and how I take customers through which jewelry wire to pick. And yes, I know I gave you a recommendation at the end, but that's just the happy medium spot. Sometimes you need to go up and down and play around, but that seems to be the spot where most people land. So that is it for me for this week. I hope that has helped, and I'll be back next Friday with our next Facebook Live. Bye for now.